Hello, this is One Mana Left, and today I'm going to kind of redo a video that I did a while back on how to trade. Now, this is pretty much identical to PoE1. I had a PoE1 video on this, but a lot of things have changed. There's no more meta crafting, there's no more crafting bench, so that'll shorten the video a little bit. But just to preface this video, I'm going to start off assuming you know absolutely nothing about trade, that you basically just came to PoE2, started playing, and you have no idea. By the end of this video, I will be talking about things that a lot of 10,000 hour players don't do and are incredibly powerful. And it will ramp up pretty fast. So if you want to get off the bus at some point, do so. I'll timestamp this. If you are a veteran coming in that thinks you know all the basics, you can skip to the sweaty stuff later. But like, when I did this video the first time, like, Lance came in and he's probably, a pretty large trade league player, and there's a bunch of things in that video he didn't know, and now he's been fully converted to being increasingly sweaty in his trading. But I'll just start right off with, let's say you know nothing, alright? So in the game, I don't know what act you unlock it, but there will be a vendor here that has currency exchange. This is kind of your best friend to start off, especially if you're just like pseudo SSF, where you're not really trading items with players, but you just want quality of life. Like, maybe I'm doing maps and I ran out of transmute orbs, and I don't really want to go pick up transmute orbs, but I happen to have a few exalted orbs, and turns out you can buy 115 for that, or 351 augments. You need to use a little bit of gold to use this NPC. But this is just insane quality of life for just fiddling through currency. As far as how this works, though, if you look here, it says the market ratio is 355 to 1. There's a couple tools you can do here. You can hold Alt, for example, and you can see actually both sides of the market. So what this means right now is if I put up one Exalt, and I want 355 augment runes, I can get that instantly, right? However, if I want to go the other way and not get it instantly, I could technically put up, I want one for 570. Now I have the best offer, okay? That means the next person wanting to trade the other way, mine will be the instant sell for them. Because right now that means in someone's box, this trade is waiting to complete. They currently have the best offer of someone wanting to buy augments, but they're not putting up the instant price, which would be the 575. So they have put up the 356 and are waiting for someone like me to come along and get the instant buy. But then I could be the other end of the spectrum and be the guy who puts up 574. Now I would have the instant sell for someone wanting to go the other way. Obviously, if you have tons of excess gold, you can do things like flip with that. But if you want something instantly, just do the auto buy. But there'll be times when I'm playing where it's like, hey, I'm going to want to buy a Greater Jeweler's Orb to gamble for a 6-link. But I don't want to do it yet because I don't have a 19 gem ready. So, I could buy it instantly for, I could buy it instantly for 19 because you can't do rounding. You either do 18 or 19. So to get it instantly, I have to put up 19 right now. Oh, someone just pulling up for 18. Okay. But maybe I don't want to do, maybe I just want to put it up at 17, I could put that up for 1 to 17, and it wouldn't go instantly, but probably over the course of the next, hour, I would get one show up. So if there's something you're being you're being patient on, you don't have to do the auto buyout. You can save a little bit of money and do a bit of a lower price. But the general rule is the more liquid and the more turnover a currency has, like in this case, Greater Jeweler's Orbs is a very hot trade commodity right now. There are tons of people buying and selling. So you'll notice on this that the margins are incredibly narrow thin. So you don't actually gain that much doing this. It's 17.75 versus 18. This is true for most currencies that have incredibly high trade volume and are incredibly liquid. There's almost no margins. But like the augment example earlier was 350 to 570 because people don't really trade augments for exalted orbs very much. It's a bit more like a one-off thing that's obscure. So the more obscure the currency, the wider the margin, and kind of the more incentivized you are to do like a patient trade. And the more liquid and high volume a trade is, the more incentivized you are to just do the instant to be faster because there's almost nothing to gain. In this case, it's 1.2% to gain by not doing instant. So not crazy gains. But this was added in PoE 1 last league, and it's been universally loved. Everyone, they could have never gotten rid of it. There were enough people that liked it. But let's say you want to trade items. You know, maybe you just beat the campaign, and you've gotten to the point where you're at maps now, and you feel like it's time to trade. This is what a lot of people do. You want to get your gear a little better. You might have just found like 4 Exalted Orbs, and you'd be surprised the relatively good gear that you can buy for like 1 Exalted Orb each. Like a lot of people like me just have these dump tabs of like, you know, a 1 Exalt dump tab. Maybe as I start to get more gear, I won't do this as much, but like, you know, these are incredibly good items that like, if a random person that just needed like accuracy just like found one of these helmets, this would be like, they'd be pogging out, man. Like, oh, look at all that armor. Like, this is not a good endgame item, but like, this is going to be better than the campaign gear you found by far. And you could even technically like exalt the last few stats, but like, most people have like a bunch of 4 or 5 decent mod items in like some dump tab that you can generally buy and have an insane upgrade over your campaign character just with like 1 to 2 Exalted Orbs apiece, and just completely deck out your character to start mapping. But how do you do that? How do you actually buy? Well, in this game, there is a trade site. So this is the trade site. It's on the main Path of Exile. Well, the actual URL is pathofexile.com trade 2. But it's on the main PoE site. If I go to the main site here, you go to Path of Exile 2 Early Access, and you go to trade. And then it takes you to technically Path of Exile. Like, I know that part's confusing, but this is the trade site. So I'll run you through how to use this, because this is where people trade items. This is the powerful tool. So it starts off, there are all these filters that are going to be like boxed up like this unless you click them down, but you expand them this way. These can be useful. I'll kind of speed run this, but like, let's say I want to just search boots. Okay, so up top you have the category, but sometimes you search for an item and the only, maybe you just want a pair of like life movement speed boots. But there might just be some random garbage unique item that has life and movement speed and then a bunch of negative stats. And there's 500 of that one unique item being sold, and you don't want that. So one thing you can do is any non-unique. Or just like rare. But this is usually just used to filter out bad uniques if you're just searching for rare items. So I recommend doing that most of the time. This is for weapons. If I want like a 500 DPS weapon for Fizz, I can do that. Obviously, there's no such thing as a pair of 500 P DPS boots. So if I search trade here, I will get 0 results. You know, there's a limit to what you can have checked here that will still render a result. But this is for weapons, basically. You can do armor. I can have a chest piece of 1500 armor. I can search that. You can search requirements, because maybe my character only has 60 dex. And I keep searching chests that require 117 dex, so I'm just going to put the max at 60. Or maybe 65, because, okay, if there's a good chest and I'm close, I can get a little bit more, whatever. But this is just for if you only have, like, set attribute requirements. Or, like, oddball cases, there's, like, an armor talent, for example, that gives you armor based off the strength requirement. So I actually do this on some searches, where I'll search a min requirement of, like, 110 strength. The other thing this does is it searches by a certain base. So, like, if you're buying an energy shield chest, for example, the higher the base, the more ES it gets. Like, the level 1 ES base, even if it was eye level 82, and had, like, top roll percent and top roll flat ES, it's still going to be a garbage chest, because it's on a base chest that has no stats. But there's a direct correlation between the chest base requirement and the chest level, and therefore the stats that are on it by default. So if I wanted to just search, like, a really big chest, I could just set the minimum int requirement to, like, 120 or, like, 150. Because I think the top base requires like 155. So you can use this to like basically only select high eye level requirement bases. Somewhere there is one that searches for item level requirement. But I like to do it here because it's essentially the same thing. But then it specifies a type. Like, I could search for a 75 chest. And there's, I think, a 75 chest of all 3 types. Armor, energy, shield, evasion. But I generally like to just do it by the attribute. Because if I want an armor chest, that means I want an armor chest. I don't care if I'm looking for my mana stacker chest. That's a energy shield chest. I don't care if it takes level 75 if it's an armor chest. So I personally like to use the attribute requirement to filter for like high armor bases. You can do map tiers and stuff. You can. This is a generally helpful one if you're looking for a specific item that you maybe is like a unique. I don't know. This corrupted versus non-corrupted comes into play a lot. More so in PoE 1 where there's a crafting bench, but even there's cases in PoE 2 where like Ingenuity is a really expensive belt. Generally, any Ingenuity is good because you can divine it to be a good value. But people are selling corrupted ones. Like I'll show you this for example. People are selling corrupted ones. If I just search Ingenuity, the first ones that are going to come up are all going to be corrupted. Also here, I can search online only or any. Usually you want to be online only. But you'll notice here, these are all 200 divine or 200 exalts. That's because these are really, really low rolled. Look, it's 40 to 80, and this has got bricked to 34. So you can't modify this again. So for this, you can go over to corrupted and hit no, and now it's going to be like 900. Okay, the trade side's a little wonky sometimes. Now it's going to be like, okay, well, people are using exalts as of today. They just decided to switch, but like, or divines, but like, if you searched in exalts, they're like 900 now. Because these are uncorrupted, and therefore you can divide them to be a high value. So sometimes you need to use the uncorrupted one. Not always. But now for what is probably the most common method of searching for items. This is what your average like PoE veteran does to search for items. And this is, well, mainly two methods. And count. So I'll show you. Let's go back to that pair of boots, okay? So I'm going to search non-unique boots. And you know what? I'm a life build and I want movement speed. So I want a pair of boots with movement speed. And I want a pair of boots with life. I want at least 20 movement speed and I want at least 60 life, okay? So now I can search pair of boots. And once again, the trade site's being a little wonky. It could just be traffic. But there are over 10,000 results that have at least 30 move speed and life, okay? So I could just buy one of these, but that's not exactly very strict. I'm just picking whatever randomly showed up first out of like 10,000 results. So I might want to go a little pickier. I know I want these two stats. I don't want to budge. The next filter, that's probably the second most common, is count. So in this example, I need some resistances. The PoE 1 website has more useful tools where you can search total resistance. So if it has like 22, 20, 28, I could search for 70 total res and that boot would show up. That doesn't currently exist in the PoE 2 trade site, but I imagine it's going to soon. But let's just add mods I would want on a pair of boots. So 3 Ellie res, Chaos res, maybe I want strength, maybe I want dex just in case for attribute requirement, maybe I want int. And let's say I want 2 of these. This should narrow the results of these boots a little bit. Still happens to be 10,000 plus. So that means there might have been 100,000 before, but it's not been narrowed enough. Well, here's the thing. Boots will show up here that have very low rolls on these. So I want a little pickier. Let's say I want at least 25 of these attributes, at least 20 chaos res, and at least 30 of an Ellie res. And maybe I want to get a little pickier. Maybe I want these to be 25 move speed boots and 80 life. All right, now watch the herd get called here. There are now 860 boots that have these requirements. You'll notice, though, you might be thinking, oh boy, that's a pretty picky pair of boots. No, still 1 exalt. 25 move speed, 100 life, strength, chaos res, 250 armor evasion with quality. This is a really good pair of boots. 1 exalt. So, like, if you just beat the campaign and you just did this, I guarantee these are better than your current boots, and they're 1 exalt. I'll guarantee even if you took your boots and exalted orbed them, and were literally allowed to pick which mod got exalted and what tier, I'll guarantee you they'd still be worse than these boots. There's literally no exalt outcome that like 99.9% of campaign players would have that would beat these pair of boots for 1 exalt. Okay, well, you can get a little sweatier. We're going to go up a level now. So if you guys maybe skipped ahead to the farther part of the video, hello veterans, welcome back. We're going to get to level 3 here. This is a big count search. So this is a jewel search, and I'm using two different counts. So I want a jewel, a very specific good jewel for my build, and I want it to either have lightning or cold max res. That's a default. I'm not negotiating with this. Now with jewels, this means it can only be an emerald or a sapphire because they only have the Ellie res that's tied to their type. So ruby has fire res, which does eliminate some of these mods because you can only roll the rage on hit mods, for example, on the ruby jewels, so that this fire res being checked off will eliminate those. But this is currently the search string I'm using for jewels, where I'm just using a double count. So I have all of these are mods that I want, and I want to have at least two of these. And these are mods I really want, because I'm trying to cap my max res, basically. I'm at... My character right now is 90, 82, 82. But I'm missing... You know, I could get more. I'm trying to get more. But I don't think I'll quite cap at 90 all res, but, you know... I'd sure love to be like 90, 86, 86. Because I've got pretty good armor. With the scavenging plate, whatever, up, I have like 87% armor. I have like 32k. But like, I still want to have two of the good stats here. So this is my current jewel search. And you'll notice that since I hit refresh, a new jewel has popped up. So this was not on there before, but I refreshed it and this popped up. If I really wanted to, I could put this to a live search. What this does is every time a new item pops up, it will give you a little ding and show you. So I can deactivate live search. Okay, it's gonna like bug out here. Deactivate live search, but if I would have had the live search on 17 minutes ago, I would have gotten a ping for this. I don't know if this is that valuable on certain items because unfortunately, I think this is a side effect. This happens in PoE 1 a lot too, don't worry. But this is also kind of a side effect of people being a little skittish in a new game and not either people that don't really know trade very well, or just the fact that not a lot of people are using live searches, or the fact that brand new people like just have never traded before, they don't want to undersell stuff, whatever. Generally, if I run a live search right now and I get this result after 1 minute, and I whisper that person, they're not going to sell me the item. If this game had an auction house, this would be insanely powerful, because then I would have live search going on everything, and I would get the snipes on everything. But your average PoE player, even if it's not underpriced, if you whisper them too fast, they just won't sell you the item. It's a bit of an unfortunate side effect, but because I mean, like there is a correlation between fast whisper and underselling, yes, but on people that are running live searches, that kind of removes that correlation. So you could have a fairly priced item that you live search and then instant whisper someone for, and they just won't whisper for you because they think they're scamming. I have this happen all the time in PoE 1. Someone will price a fair item that's really specific. I'll whisper them instantly. And then they'll turn around and raise the price by 5 times. And I'll check that live search 2 weeks later. And that item is still listed. And it will never sell. So the way most people's brains work is if they fairly price an item and you instant whisper them, you've deleted that item from the game. Because they will now raise it to a price that will literally never sell, and they will never come back and lower the price. So that item is removed from Path of Exile. It will go into a remove only tab in standard for all of time. It will just take up server space on GG's data servers. It will literally never exist again because they will just be like, oh, I undersold it. And they'll just raise the price 5 times to a price literally no one would pay, and it will never sell again. So right now, with no auction house and no instant buys, live search is not very powerful. But the thing is, they've mentioned in interviews that they are looking to add instant buys for gold. I don't know if they reverted this stance, but if they do go ahead and add instant buys, this will be insanely powerful. But okay, it's time for the sweatiest of sweaty search strings, because there is a more powerful tool than count. I'll show you. What if, you know, in this search string right here, technically there could be a pair of boots that has 29 cold res, 45 fire res, and 19 chaos res that doesn't show up here. And that pair of boots could have 140 life and 35 movement speed. And it would not show up on this search string. Just because it meets a cutoff, or it far exceeds the stats I want. but just misses on one of my count cutoffs. Which brings us to the most powerful by far of search strings, and that is weighted sum. This is the type that I did the video on in PoE 1, and like, I remember Lance, who's like, he's a trade mogul. He participates in trade a lot. He's a hideout player, and he was just, it blew my mind. He just did count searches for all of his trades. But he converted to the dark side. He uses weighted sum now, and it's much more powerful. All right, so how do I do this? Well, I'm going to switch this from count to weighted sum. I'm going to remove the requirements on these items because, like I said, what if something had 19 chaos res? I don't want that to be discredited, so I'm going to remove the minimums. I am going to keep the maximums up here, though. I'm going to add them to the bottom. The reason for this, you don't have to do this step, but the reason for this is because what this counts is like the extra credit. Because if you only count the two up top, if you had 35 instead of 25 move speed, you'd get no credit for it. And if you had 140 instead of 80 life, you'd get no credit for it. So by adding them to the bottom, I'm giving myself credit by having extra. But I'm still going to keep them requirement. Remember, these two strings aren't exclusive. This is an AND search, so it has to have these two, but it's still counting the sum for these. Okay. This is the part that people really have the hardest time doing, and that's assigning a weight. The truth is there's no correct answer, but I'll give you a guideline, and I'll show you an example of this. As you tweak the number, this will get more accurate. But let's just start off. What you want to do is pick a stat that is very similar in value to other stats that is a very universal modifier. So to do this, I usually pick a resistance or an attribute because they're all very similar in weight. They're all like similar in value. And it's just easy to base everything off of either a resistance or an attribute. So I'm going to pick a resistance for this one. So all three of my LE resistances are going to be 1. Okay. Chaos res, I think, is twice as valuable. No, it's 1.5 times as valuable because it can roll up to about 2/3. The other rule of thumb I'd use is what can it roll up to. For example, let's say on a ring I want res and accuracy. So res can roll up to 45, but accuracy can roll up to 480. So if I set them each to 1, obviously a res with accuracy is going to have 10 times the value on the weighted sum search. Because the ratio on how high they can roll is about 10 to 1, if I value a perfect roll equally, that's a good idea that I should use my weighting as 1/10 roughly. So in that example, I would set 0.1 to accuracy and 1 to res. That way if a ring had 336 accuracy or 34 lightning res, the weighted sum would treat those two things as equal. You can always come back later and tweak the numbers and be like, yo, I really need accuracy. I'm 82% hit chance. I really need accuracy. And you can go and change the weight from 0.1 to 0.2. And now rings that have 400 accuracy will just show up ahead of that. So you can always tweak these to your needs. And I'll show you an example of that after I do this one. So let's just say attributes are the same as well. This might be a good example, though, where attributes don't quite roll as high as res. So since you can only roll up to 33 attribute but 45 res, maybe it makes sense to put these a little bit higher. Because the argument against this is like on the talent tree, you can switch attributes. So if you're just needing these for requirement, a player just getting to maps is probably having a tougher time getting res capped and a harder and an easier time tweaking their res or tweaking their attributes on the trees. But all right, so since I'm only going to require move speed and life anyways, the only thing I really care about in value is how much more than 25 do I value. So how much would I value 35 move speed over 25? That's 10 extra move speed. How much would I value that? Quite a bit. I'd probably put that at like 5. No joke. So I'm going to put this for 5. This is going to mean that all these numbers are going to show up by at least 125 because I've set this value. I'll do 4 even. So this basically adds 100 to the value. And then life I will also set to, let's go 0.25. Let's go 0.3. That means I value 100 life. Let's go 0.4. That means I value 100 life at like 40 fire res. If that's true, then 0.4 makes sense. But remember, because I'm adding 80, that's going to add 32. So the worst pair of boots that can show up just by having these two is 132. So now I'm going to search for a pair of boots that just have excess. So I'm going to pick a number, and actually the number you pick doesn't really matter. Because watch, if I search 132, this will be every pair of boots that beats these two. So this will be 10,000 plus. See? But if I just said, okay, that's too many, let's make it 200. All that happens is when I up this value, it's going to just make it stricter and stricter and stricter and just keep showing better and better boots. Now we show 3,400. All right, what about 240? Now it's going to be, okay, we're up to 280 results, okay? These are already getting to be pretty good boots. Maybe I want to turn off corrupted, you know? Maybe I want to make it 250. Now there's 132 results, and all of these boots are insane. 30 move speed, life, mana, 2 attributes, good roll, and a res. 20 exalt pair boots, you know? These are all, like, and as you can see, generally, as the score goes up, the price will also go up. Because, watch, the cheapest one's 20. What happens if I search 300? I guarantee the cheapest boot's going to be like 100. There might not even be that many that have 300. No results found at 300, okay? 280. It's going to be like 100 exalts per boot. Yeah, 124 for a 280 pair. So this is probably like the best way to search. But okay, what if my values are a little different? You know, like, what if I have this character here and I really need strength, but I'm good on dex and int requirements, and I'm really good on fire res, and I really mainly need cold and chaos. I just come back and change the values. Let's up the chaos to 2.5, because I need it more than anything. Let's lower fire res to 0.8. I would never put anything to 0, because if a stat is lower value for you, you still might just have some value in that stat, because then if I come back and switch a different piece of gear later that had fire res before but doesn't now, well, then I'll still be glad I had fire res. So I wouldn't ever just remove something and put it to 0. I would just lower the value if you have an excess of it. But, you know, cold res, I'm going to put at 1.2. Lightning res, I'm going to put 1.1. So because of my res spread, this is kind of what I value. I really value chaos res. I value strength way more. And I'm going to put dex and int down to 0.8 because I'm good on those requirements. Now let's see what happens to my boots. These should return results that are much, much more tailored to my specific character gear requirements. Now let's look. Oh, look. Strength and chaos res. Because these are higher value now. Because I need strength and chaos res. It might still show a piece of boots. It might still show boots that have, like, some cold and lightning. Yeah. Actually, those are the higher weight ones. Yeah. Cold and lightning are higher. Yeah. It might still show a pair that has fire res on them. But it's lower value now. So by tweaking the numbers based off what you currently need, you can, and you don't have to go to 280. You can search this at like 230 and just see, you know. Go back to some 5 divine pair boots or 5 exalt pair boots. Now, look at this. That you can add in, I think this is a Pee-wee 1 thing. No, it's not a Pee-wee 1 thing. In Pee-wee 1, you can add empty suffix or empty prefix, because technically, if something was a 230 score but had 6 mods, but this was also a 230 score, but only had 4 mods, technically this is better, because then I could technically slam it 2 times and get lucky. It's possible. So, I think they'll add this later, but this is one of those things that is on the website in Pee-wee 1, but is not on the website in Pee-wee 2. But I imagine they'll add it. I'll show you an example of this that I have open. This is my ring search. I'm doing a 180 sum on these weights. And I'm using this string to search for rings. These are pretty nice rings, but I have my accuracy set higher right now because the ring I'm looking to replace has accuracy on it. So I need accuracy on whatever ring that comes in to replace it. But before, I had my accuracy set lower here. And I had a couple other stats tweaked around. Like I had Ellie Res set higher. So I got this ring, which scored like a 220. Because when I had the search string on before, I had my Ellie Res set higher. And sure enough, I got a ring that has 30 all res, plus 30 cold, plus 35 lighting. So I happened to find a ring that had 155 res on it. because I was replacing a ring that had a lot of res, so I was valuing res highly. But then after I got this ring, I'm like, well, I don't need resistance anymore. I'm pretty much infinite res, especially if I get an ingenuity later. So then I went back and I searched this ring result. I lowered the value of res a little bit here. I upped the value of chaos res by a ton. You see my fire is still higher because that's the res that this ring doesn't have is fire. Which my rest of my gear has a lot of fire, but I'm planning for endgame, so I have it that way right now. But I have chaos res super high because that's what I want. And I have strength really high. All attributes still fairly high. And then I think I even took dex and int off completely. I had dex and int on here before. But like, you know, this is how I'm currently searching for rings. And basically all of these rings I would wear. It's just I'm looking basically for a ratio of like, you know, if this was like a 210 for 30, I'd buy it instantly. Or if I saw like, you know, a 180 pop up for like 5, I might buy it and then just like corrupt it or something. But I'm basically looking for like the ratio of cost to score. If there's something here that you'd look and be like, I legitimately would not wear this ring, it's not an upgrade for me, that just means you either need to raise the score or change your point values. You should roughly get to a point where when you hit search, every ring you would wear. Naturally, the rings at the bottom are going to be like tied with your current ring. So I set the cutoff there just because, like, once again, if there was a 2 Exalt ring that was identical to mine, I would buy it just to corrupt it. So that's why I set the cutoff about equivalent to my current ring. But, you know, the nicer rings are going to start to be insane. Like, a 191 score is pretty good. Like, a 214, like, this one's insane. This one's absolutely insane. Let's see how deep the rabbit hole can go. Let's search for 210. It's 2 rings. It's that one and this one. And this is a breach ring. So, 2 rings possible at 210. But so I'm going to keep it at 180 for now. But, like, this is just... The weighting comes down to what you value it at personally. You can derive that number from what they can roll. Res all rolls the same. Attributes roll similar numbers to res, but a little lower. I could add in percent armor, which rolls maybe up to 100 on a chest. So I'm going to set that at like a third as high as res, because res rolls like a third the value. Even if I value the 2 stats equally, if they were both perfect. So I would try to base the numbers off roughly what the maximum roll is, assuming you value them equally. And then from there, I'd sprinkle on weighting one way or the other based off how much you actually value that stat. Maybe you do value life over armor on a chest, so you lean the weight a little heavier on life and a little less on chest for like the perfect ratio. But yeah, this is weighted sum search. This is the best way to search for crazy items. Every league, I snipe items for like a few exalts that are worth like 100 plus, you know. I end up reselling a lot of them for ridiculous value later after I upgrade out of them, but I am not a good seller in this game. I undersell everything. I don't re-raise when people whisper me immediately. I just sell immediately. I make my money. I put my bread on the table buying, and I'm a hell of a buyer. But with these tips, maybe you can be too. I'll see you guys next time.